Life has taken me on a ride lately. Turns, ups, downs, a few deep drops, and plenty of moments that have rattled my last nerve. But I've kept my cool, so we're good. Mostly. If you've ever been to Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, there's a roller coaster there called the Loch Ness Monster. I've ridden it multiple times, and lately, that's probably the closest comparison I can give you for what life has felt like. You get on, strap yourself in, and once that thing starts moving, you're committed. There are climbs where you can see what's coming, but turns you didn't expect. Drops that make you question why you got on this in the first place. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, you just keep reminding yourself, the end is coming. Just hold on. Eventually, the coaster slows down, you come around that final turn, and pull back into the station where you started. For a second, there's relief. You made it. But here's the crazy part. If nobody's waiting in line, sometimes they'll ask if you want to ride again. And after everything you just went through, the drops, the turns, your stomach somewhere 3 rows behind you, you look around and think, yeah, let's do it again. And lately, I've been wondering, why does life feel like that sometimes? I finish one thing, and before I even had time to appreciate making it back to the station, I've already decided what's next. Work, business, marriage, health, scarred sons, responsibilities, things I want to do, things I need to do. And here's what makes it difficult. I actually want these things. I prayed for some of them. I worked for some of them. I chose some of them. I love some of them. So the question isn't, how do I get off the ride? It's, when everything matters, how do I know which ride deserves me next? Welcome to the Scarred Sons podcast, where we dive into scars of life and the outcomes they shape. This podcast is a space for honest conversations about my journey, the lessons learned, the struggles endured, and the growth that followed, geared towards helping other sons with scars. We'll explore topics like personal development, mental and spiritual health, and the path to becoming the best version of yourself. Let's navigate these challenges together, one story at a time. Let's dive in. The views expressed on this podcast are based on my personal experiences and insights. I am not a licensed therapist, counselor, or medical professional, and the content shared is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or guidance. Please consult a qualified professional for advice tailored to your specific needs. I am not responsible for any decisions or outcomes resulting from the use of this content. What's up to all my scarred sons out there? I'm your host, Ty. Before we dive in, I want you to know this is a safe space. I'm not here as someone who has it all figured out, just a man willing to speak his truth. And if you carry scars, welcome home. Connecting the dots. If you've been walking with me for the last few episodes, you may have noticed something. These conversations have been building on each other. We started with the red cardinal, and the reminder that just because you've been parked in your past doesn't mean you have to stay there. Then came hunting season. Once you decide to move, what are you actually aiming at? Then chess or checkers. Because knowing what you want isn't enough. Sometimes you've got to change the way you think, the way you move, and learn to look a few moves ahead. And most recently, the driver's seat. That conversation asks, who's actually making the decisions in your life? Are you leading yourself, or are fear, guilt, expectations, and everybody else's needs choosing the direction? And now here we are. You're moving. You know what you're aiming at. You're thinking about your next move. You're in the driver's seat. But what happens when everything in front of you matters? Your career, your marriage, your health, your purpose, your responsibilities, sometimes getting some sleep. So how do you choose? And if you're new to Scar Sons, you don't have to hear those episodes first to understand this one. I just wanted you to see the connection. Because these aren't just podcast topics. They're questions I'm wrestling with in real time. And maybe you are too. Today, we're talking about what happens when everything matters. But everything can't have you at the same time. When everything matters. Some of the things competing for my time aren't distractions. They're things I deeply care about. This podcast is extremely important to me. If I'm reaching one's soul, it's doing its job. I'm not looking for a monetary return from Scar Sons. Part of the reason for that goes all the way back to middle school. My band director, Mr. Jerome Bynum, enrolled me into a mentorship program back in Norfolk, Virginia. Mr. Bynum, if you hear this, thank you. You've always been a role model of mine. That program gave me an opportunity to spend time around the brothers of Omega Psi Phi. Strong black men giving up their time to mentor us and showing us what it looked like to do positive things in the community. That exposure mattered. Men who didn't have to make time for us made time for us anyway. And sometimes you don't understand the impact of something like that until years later. When you find yourself wanting to do the same thing for somebody else. That's part of what this podcast is for me. A way to give back to the same cause that once poured into me. If something I say helps one scarred son think differently, heal differently, or realize he's not alone, this is doing its job. But then, life shows up. The podcast doesn't pay the bills. Never Miss a Spot does. One night after my 9 to 5, inspiration hit me for the podcast. An idea came. The thoughts started developing. And I wanted to grab them while they were there. But I also had invoices that need to go out for my commercial cleaning business. Situations like that tear me up inside. It frustrates me when I can't give the podcast the consistency I'd like. But at the same time, I care too much about these conversations to rush them. I don't want to put something out just because Sunday came around. If we're going to have these conversations, I want them to mean something. So that night, the podcast had to wait. I chose Never Miss a Spot. Not because one mattered and the other didn't. The invoices represented work already completed and responsibilities attached to it. The inspiration could wait. And honestly, that conversation deserved to wait. Rushing something meaningful just to check off my list wouldn't serve the scarred son I'm trying to reach anyway. That's something I'm learning. Sometimes asking which one matters more doesn't help. The better question is, which one needs me right now? Then I have to trust the answer. Everybody wants a piece. Trusting the answer gets harder when work follows me through the front door. My 9 to 5 has picked up tremendously lately, and a lot of my day involves what we call windshield time. In sales, that's basically the time spent traveling from one customer to another. The more windshield time you're using, the less time you have to actually sell. And after meeting with customers, there's still follow-up. Product recommendations, quotes, submittals, emails, that stuff stacks up quickly. And sometimes it follows me home. There have been plenty of nights when my 9 to 5 won. I came through the door and went pretty much straight to the office. But there are other nights when I chose differently. I spend time with my wife. We talk about our day, cook a meal together, find a Netflix series that catches our attention. And for a while, we're just together. But sometimes there's another conversation happening inside my head. I'm thinking about the emails I haven't answered, the quote that still needs to get done, the follow-up waiting on me. And that's where the fight starts. Because I can make a convincing argument for either side. Work provides for us. That's true. But my wife provides for us too. Not in the way my 9 to 5 does, in ways my 9 to 5 never could. Companionship, love, support, laughter. A place where I don't have to be the salesperson, the business owner, the podcaster, or the person trying to figure everything out. Sometimes I can just be her husband. If I'm not careful, I can convince myself that working more is always the responsible decision. Call it providing, call it ambition, call it taking care of business. All of those things might be true, but they don't automatically make it the right choice. So internally, I become the referee. Work in one corner, my marriage in the other. Both sides have a pretty good argument. Eventually, I've got to end the fight and choose a winner. And some nights, the laptop needs to lose, because sometimes the most important thing waiting for me isn't waiting in my inbox. Tired of choosing. Now think about how many decisions have already happened by this point in the day. There's actually a name for some of what I'm describing. Decision fatigue. It's the mental strain that can build after making decision after decision after decision. And eventually, the next choice becomes harder to make with the same clarity. By 7 o'clock, I've already been deciding all day which customer needs me first. What can wait? What needs to happen tonight? Podcast, cleaning, time with my wife, exercise, that unfinished quote, or do I just go to bed? Sometimes I don't struggle because I don't know what matters. I'm just tired of choosing. But there's another layer to it for me. My word is important. If I tell a customer I'm going to have something completed, I want to hit that deadline. Because when I don't, something inside of me doesn't simply say, you missed the deadline. It says, you told them you would do it. And if I'm not careful, that becomes, you lied to them. Now you're somebody they can't trust. That's a lot of weight to attach to one unfinished task. But I think I understand some of where it comes from. I remember telling my grandmother I was coming home to visit. Then a storm hit, and I changed my plans. The next time I saw her, she jokingly mentioned how disappointed she was that I didn't come. She wasn't mad. She definitely understood. But she had been looking forward to seeing me. That stayed with me. So much so that afterward, I stopped telling my grandmother when I was coming to visit. I'd just show up. If I didn't make the promise, I couldn't disappoint her by breaking it. I know the feeling of being let down from some of my own scars. And I've never wanted to pass that feeling on to somebody else. Not even to the people who may have passed it on to me. So put me at 11 o'clock at night with something unfinished that I said I'd complete, and I'm no longer deciding between work and sleep. In my head, I'm deciding between rest and keeping my word. Just finish it. You said you would. Don't let it bleed into tomorrow. Then morning comes, and I pay for it. I'm learning that keeping my word also means being wiser about the promises I make in the first place. Before I commit, can I look honestly at what's already on my plate and ask, can I actually deliver what I'm about to promise? Because sometimes staying up feels responsible at night and irresponsible the next morning. And there are nights when I listen to my body and shut everything down. When I wake up, the unfinished work is still there, but I'm different. More energy, more clarity, better equipped with whatever is waiting. Sometimes the responsible decision is finishing the task. Other times, it's knowing your limits before you make the promise. What will they think? Then there are times when I know exactly what my yes is going to cost me, and I still choose it. I'm cautious about telling my manager no too many times. And let me make this clear. My manager's pretty awesome. This isn't about him putting unreasonable expectations on me. This is about an expectation I carry for myself. A while back, he encouraged me to attend an after-hours networking event hosted by one of my customers. It started at 6. The problem was that was also a cleaning night for my commercial cleaning business. I had 2 clients scheduled and normally would have started around 5. I only found out about the event a day or 2 beforehand. For me, that wasn't enough notice to move cleaning customers around. At the same time, I understood what saying no to the event could communicate. Notice I said could. I know my manager believes I'm capable, but there's still a part of me protecting the image of the man who sat in that interview more than 3 years ago and told them what he could do. Sales is funny like that. What I did last year, nobody cares. I can't brag about last year's results forever. At some point, I've got to do it again. My activity needs to be where it needs to be. My results have to come. And some of my caution comes from experience. I've been a top performer before, and still watching higher opportunities remain out of reach. So I'm careful, probably overly careful sometimes. I'm constantly trying to understand how far I can push without feeling the energy in the room change. That night, I made my decision. I was going to do both. Go to the networking event, then go to war with the rest of my night. We didn't leave until around 8, and while everybody else headed into whatever they had planned next, I still had 2 cleaning clients waiting for me. So I went to work. I didn't make it home till well after midnight. But here's what might surprise you. I didn't regret it. That ride home felt fulfilling. I felt accomplished. I had shown up professionally and still handled my cleaning commitments, but nobody saw what it took. Everybody else's day pretty much went according to plan. Well, as far as I know. But I know one thing. Mine didn't. I was jumping through hoops and obstacles like a madman, making sure nobody else felt the inconvenience of the decision I made. And when I finally got into that truck and head home, I knew only the strength of God got me through that day. I'm not telling you that for brownie points. I'm not telling you so you can think, man, this dude works hard. I'm telling you because there's a Scar son listening who knows exactly what I'm talking about. People see that you showed up. They don't see what it took to get there. They see the deadline, not the sleep you lost. They see you sitting in a meeting, not what you rearranged to get in that chair. They see the finished work, not the mental gymnastics behind it. And sometimes that's the load we carry, trying to stay ahead of judgment, speculation, and opinions about who we really are. But here's the part I'm having to confront. Sometimes nobody is even questioning me. Sometimes I'm working this hard to answer questions nobody has even asked. Because I've experienced what it's like to perform and still not been given access to other opportunities. So part of me stays ready to prove it again, ready to protect what I built. I pulled that night off, and I'm proud I did. I'm not going to rewrite the story and pretend the lesson is that I should have said no. Sometimes the answer really is, I'm going to do both. The growth for me is understanding why I'm willing to make the sacrifice. Does this moment genuinely call for it? Or am I exhausting myself trying to stay ahead of a judgment that might not even be coming? Because I don't want to become so committed to protecting everybody else's perception of me that I forget to protect me. Take the armor off. Maybe that's where the other side of this conversation begins. After all of that, there has to be somewhere I can put everything down. For me, it's the bathtub. There's something about preparing a hot bath, throwing in some eucalyptus Epsom salt, and finally getting to sit down and soak. Man, it's better than that first cup of coffee in the morning. And that's saying something. Once I get in, everything from the day starts disappearing. just falling off of me. The customers, the emails, the invoices, the decisions, the expectations. That's my space. Now, some of y'all might think taking a bath is weird. That's fine. I grew up with a tub, not a shower. I've been taking baths since I was a baby. Honestly, I pretty much only use the shower when I'm in a rush. That's probably more information than you needed. So let's refocus. I think every scarred son needs a space like that. Somewhere you can take off the armor, take off the mask, somewhere you don't have to code switch, you don't have to prove you're capable, you don't have to be strong for anybody, you don't have to perform. You can laugh, cry, think, or do absolutely nothing. For me, that's the bathtub. Sometimes I read, sometimes I scroll social media. A lot of these podcast conversations, I script from right there. Sometimes I just sit. There isn't a right way for me to spend that time. Nobody has access. The work phones aren't with me, just my personal. I'm free, relaxed, unbothered, and eventually refueled. Some nights I'm in there for hours and hours, and I don't feel a bit of guilt about it. Maybe that's why I protect it, and your space doesn't have to look anything like mine. I'm not telling every scarred son to go buy some eucalyptus Epsom salt and run a bath. Although, I'm not saying don't try it either. I'm saying you need somewhere you don't have to perform. A place where the version of you everybody else needs can finally clock out. Because we spend so much time wearing armor, professional armor, husband armor, provider armor, business owner armor, parent armor. The armor that says, I got it. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about me. And armor serves a purpose. But that doesn't mean you're supposed to sleep in it. At some point, you've got to take it off. Not because you're weak. Not because you're running from your responsibilities. But because carrying all of that has weight. Maybe that's what the room really means. It doesn't necessarily have to be a room. It's a space where you don't have to earn the right to be there. Your productivity doesn't determine whether your time was spent well. Where for a little while, you can just be you. There's a verse I want to leave with you before we get into this week's mirror moment. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31 says, But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. I've heard this verse before in songs and sermons. Definitely wasn't my first time for this one, but I've still been thinking about it a little bit differently lately. Because with everything I'm carrying, it's easy to ask God for strength when I'm tired. But I don't want my relationship with God to only exist in moments when I need something from Him. I'm learning to be more intentional about inviting God into these spaces with me, into the decisions, into the work, into my marriage, into scarred sons, and even into those quiet moments when I'm sitting in the tub with absolutely nothing to prove. I don't just want God to give me enough strength to get through another day. I want to grow closer to Him while I'm going through it. Maybe waiting on the Lord isn't about waiting for Him to refill my tank, just so I can get back to everything I was doing. Maybe it's also an invitation to slow down, to recognize His presence, to seek His direction, and to allow the relationship itself to become part of what strengthens me. I'm still growing in that, but I'm becoming more intentional about not waiting until I'm running on empty to invite God in. I want Him in the ride with me from the beginning. This feels like a good time to pause for the mirror moment. Let's dive in. The mirror moment is a space where we slow down and we take an honest look at the man in the mirror. No distractions, no pressure, just reflection. Look at the man in the mirror. After everything we've talked about today, here's the question I want you to sit with this week. What deserves you right now? Not what's making the most noise, not what makes you look the busiest, and not what you're choosing because you're worried about what someone might think if you say no. What actually deserves you right now? Maybe work has been getting your best, while someone you love gets what's left. Maybe you're carrying more than you need to, trying to stay ahead of questions nobody has even asked. Or maybe you spent so much time being the one who figures everything out that you haven't stopped to ask whether you need some of you too. So look at the man in the mirror. Invite God into the decision. Ask Him for direction. Then trust yourself enough to make the choice. Because choosing one thing doesn't mean everything else stopped mattering. It means something has to wait. Thank you for listening to this week's Mirror Moment. Let's get back to the episode. As I sit with everything we've talked about today, I'm realizing that the hardest part isn't always knowing what matters. It's making the choice. I'm still learning when to push, when to stop, when to say yes, and when something needs to wait. I'm learning to be more confident in those decisions without feeling like I have to explain every choice or prove I could have handled more. And probably, most importantly, I'm learning I don't have to make those decisions alone. I can invite God into them because I know there are going to be more turns, more drops, more days when several things I care about are staring back at me. And I have to choose. And knowing me, I'm probably going to get back on the ride. But I want to enter those moments differently, with more intention, more confidence, more discernment, and more faith. Because maybe the goal isn't to never miss. Maybe it's knowing which target you're willing to miss, so you can give the right one your best shot. I'm still figuring out which target that is sometimes. Maybe you are too. But I think that's part of the work. Developing the discernment to know where to aim, the confidence to make the choice, and the faith to trust God with what He can't get to today. Thank you for spending this time with me. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with another scarred son who may need it. Leave a rating, leave a review, or send me a message. I'd love to hear what deserves you right now and what you're finally allowing to wait. Until next time, keep healing, keep growing, and keep believing that your scars are part of your story, not the end of it. Peace and love. Thank you for joining me on the Scarred Sons podcast. Remember, every scar tells a story, and every story has the power to inspire growth. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach out and share your journey. Don't forget to stay up to date with the podcast by liking, commenting, and subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at scarred.sons for more content and updates. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep healing, and remember, scars don't define you, they shape you. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.